guys, this is what we did in our notebook today. So these lessons that we're going to go over are related to, we're going to move from reading Cynthia Rowland stuff to writing our own stories in the Cynthia Rowland style. So before we get started writing our own stories, I want to kind of talk about how the stories are going to be different between the first quarter memory story that we did, and the second quarter narrative story that we're going to do. So the first quarter story was chronological, which means we told it in order. It was about yourself. It was kind of related to one of your memories. And it was pretty realistic. Like, you just told exactly what happened to you and in your own life. We did pull in some of that author's craft, like sensory details and description. We added transition words and dialogue. So these were some of the things that we used in this narrative story. This story will also be a narrative, and the big question that came up today is this story fiction? And yes, this story will be fiction, but it'll be kind of a realistic fiction. And we'll get more about that in a minute. This story is also going to be chronological. It's going to be realistic fiction. I put a little question mark because it's going to be different because it's not going to be about you. This story we're going to use our story elements to tell a story. So we're going to have characters that are telling the story. So we kind of want those characters to be realistic, that we want them to go through problems that typical kids go through, and things that happen in families or things that happen in classes. And so we want to kind of have those events going on. In the beginning of your story, you're going to kind of set up that introduction. You're going to talk about your characters. You're going to describe your setting, kind of set your reader up for what's getting ready to happen. In the middle, you're going to have events and a conflict. This is going to be something different. Our story before might not have had any conflict in it. You just told what happened to you. But we're going to stick a conflict in this. We're going to give our characters a problem to solve, which will be our ending, our solution. Another difference in this story is that this one's going to have a theme or a message or a purpose, something that you want your reader to think about after they're finished reading it. Just like the first story, we're going to have that author's craft in there, but we're going to use Cynthia Rowland as our muse. So we're going to have her, we're going to add our sensory details like she did, repetitive language. A lot of hers had nature cycles. So we're going to think about cycles that we go through during our year. Doesn't have to be nature. It might be a cycle that's like with sports. You always have a preseason, you always have a practice, you always have a few games, then you end up at the championship. So it could be a cycle that's a cycle like that, or a school year. You come to school in the beginning of the year, and then we learn a whole lot, and then we have the end of the year. And so it could be a cycle like that. One of the Cynthia Rowland author's crafts that we talked about was the show, don't tell. If our story is talking about how much we love a video game, we will never, ever say how much we love that video game. The sentence, I love my video game, will not go in your text because you're going to show the reader that you love that game through your events. You're going to have your transition words just like last time, and that we're going to do a lesson on how to move your story along with transition words. You're going to have dialogue in your story just like we did last time. So those characters are going to talk to each other. And then the last way that this story is a little bit different is on this story, our format was pretty much just type your story in sentences straight down the page. This one, we're going to change up the format. Cynthia Rowland writes short stories, so you might choose a short story format. You might write it as a poem, like a long narrative poem, like her book Long Night Moon. You might do a lot of like sensory details, or a lot of you might do a lot of description like she did in the book Boris. So if you're interested in that, we'll do a couple lessons on that. Most of you are probably going to do either a picture book or a chapter book. And we're also going to think about our point of view, whether or not we're telling it through a first person point of view or a third person point of view. So let's get started. In your notebook, I want you to write selecting up here at the top. I'm going to cover these up and then we'll uncover them one at a time. Don't want you to get too overwhelmed. At different parts of the lesson, I'm going to tell you to pause the video and you'll go and fill in, you'll go ahead and make your own chart. All right, so you should have selecting at the top. First thing we're going to do is talk about our main characters. Now, we don't want to have too many characters. Remember, whatever characters you put in your story, in your plan, they're going to have to make an appearance in your story. You're going to have about a week. So if we were Cynthia Rylant, and we had all the time in the world, then we could put a whole lot of characters. But since we're fourth graders and we have about a week to do this, kind of limit your characters. Think about who is most important to your story. Or you might think about grouping some of the characters in your story. So the story I selected came from let's find the page. Okay, so my story is coming from some of the things that I wrote about last week when I was doing my generating. So I picked this Jack Frost camping. It came up a couple times in my story. And so came up. I didn't do it there. So it came up, and I thought that was a good one for me to do. So in this one, it's going to be based on that event in my life, but the rest of it, I'm going to have some authors' liberty. So I can make this story however I want it to go. It doesn't have to match reality. Remember, that's going to be a big difference between this story and this story. This one was a memory, and it was like about yourself. This story I can play with, and I can change things around as I need to so that I have a good story flow. All right, so in my story, I'm going to have 4 characters. I'm going to have a dad and a mom and 2 kids. At some point, I'll name all my characters. Like the dad will have a name, the mom will have a name. So if you want to, you can make up the names for your characters. You don't have to use the real names of the people in your real life. You can make up the names. Now, if you want to use the real names, that is totally fine too. Yesterday, we talked about a protagonist. I'm making the mom the protagonist in my story. And I can decide whether the mom will tell the story first person and she'll say, I got everything ready for the camping trip. I packed the bags. I loaded all the supplies in the car. I shopped for our food. I was so excited about the day we were leaving. Or it could be a third person, a narrator tells the story from outside. The Freck family was ready to go camping. Their car was loaded with food, drinks, sleeping bags, tents, everything but the kitchen sink. So you can decide whether you want one of the characters to tell the story with an I person point of view, or a third person, the narrator tells the story. You also want to think about your character's traits. Are they in mine? I'm going to make the dad bossy. He's going to tell everybody what to do. And I even said over here on the thoughts, he's going to be kind of a know-it-all character. So like our real dad at home, he is a little bossy, but I wouldn't say he's a know-it-all. He's going to be kind of a leader. This was a scout troop, so like if I have pictures, he's going to be in a scout uniform, and the kids will be dressed in their scout uniforms. Their ages are going to be about 8 and 9, so about the ages of you. But if you want to make your characters older or younger, that's fine. I said that the mom was going to be old and tired. The mom's character trait is also she is the worrier. She's going to worry, is there enough food? Do we have enough campsite? Do we have enough clothes? Where will we cook? What will we eat? And my kid number 1 is going to be an adventurous character. He's going to be brave and go out and hunt around in the woods. And my kid number 2 is going to be a more nervous character. He's going to be a little bit more timid and a little bit more like the mom, a little more worried. And as I go, I might add things to this category. So what I want you to do now is you're going to pause the video. You're going to make your own chart. So name, trait, physical features, and thoughts. Okay. And then you're going to list your characters. You can go ahead and name them if you want to. And when you're ready to talk about setting, push play on the video. All right, friends. So now we're ready to pick a setting. Remember, a setting is where and when. So my camping story is going to happen in the woods at a campground, kind of in the countryside, and it's going to be part of the description is that it is going to be dark. No ambient light from our that we have in our cities, like street lights and lights from businesses, and it's going to be dark out there. We're going to experience dark like a blanket. You could have more than one place. If your setting if your people or your characters in your story need to move from one place to another, you might have multiple settings. And then you want to think about when. This is going to be a winter when it's very cold. It's going to be a weekend trip. And mainly the story is going to happen at night. And the thing about night in the winter is that nights in the winter are usually longer than nights in the summer. And so that was a little detail I added in today. So I'm going to let you pause right there, and I'm going to let you think about where and when you want your story to happen. When you're ready to do events, come on, push play, and come on back. All right, let's talk about those events. Now, this is where it gets really fun because my problem for my mom character is she's going to be a little bit scared of the dark. Now, is Mrs. Freck really scared of the dark? Not really. Sometimes, I guess, if I've watched a really scary movie, I might be scared of the dark. But generally, I'm not too worried about the dark. But for my character, my mom character, I'm going to make her kind of scared of the dark. Remember, she's a warrior. And so I'm going to make her scared of the dark because I know a lot of people that might be scared of the dark. And this story might help them overcome that fear. So during the night, she's already scared and worried. She's going to hear a lot of noises in the dark. And then her phone battery dies, so she has no flashlight and no way to check the time. And so that makes her a little more nervous because the night just seems like it will never end. Kid number 2, the nervous one, is going to wake up and want to talk and chat. And she gets nervous and scared that he's going to wake up other people. In the night, they are both so cold. They are freezing, and they wonder, is it ever going to be morning when the sun will warm things up? And the mom character starts to think about giving up. Maybe she should just get in the car and head to her mom's house down the road and spend the rest of the night there, or spend the rest of the night in a hotel so that she can get through this really cold night. Our resolution is going to be that morning comes at last, and with the daylight, all those nighttime worries kind of disappear, and everything is made better by a nice hot campfire breakfast, which I'll talk about more on the next page. So you pause the video and write down, give your character a problem to solve, and then think of a way that you're going to solve that problem with the character. And in the middle, you want to have some events that the character is going to go through before the actual end of the story. So pause the video, write your problem and your events and your resolution, and when you're ready, we'll be back for the next part. All right, so the next part of the lesson is to think about your purpose, your message or your lesson that you want readers to think about whenever they are finished with your story. So my message or lesson is that when things are scary, you should keep going. You shouldn't give up. You should just wait a while until it gets better. And always thought of this either quote or this proverb that someone said one time. It's always darkest before dawn. And so, meaning when the sun comes up, everything scary is going to seem much better. And so that's my message. So now you're going to pause the video. Think about your message or your lesson. What do you want your character to learn so that that character ends up teaching others who are reading your story? And then when you're ready to come back, we've got one more part to this lesson. All right, here's the last part of the lesson. And this is probably the part that's going to take the longest. So I want you to write at the top, visualizing details, because you want to think of details that will really help your reader be in the story with you. The best stories are those that really immerse us and make us feel like we're a part of the story, that we're right there camping right along with our characters. So I picked out a few objects, a few things that you might see on a camping trip. And I just listed those here. So like our sleeping bag, our breakfast casserole, the campfire, the owl and coyote noises, and the moonlight. Had to pick moonlight because you know Cynthia Rylett loves her moonlight. In the middle column, I want you to think of your sensory details. These are going to be your adjectives. So my sleeping bag is fluffy and soft and cozy and blue and long and silky. I might not use all of those, but it helps if I go ahead and make those adjectives so that I'm ready when I'm writing. That breakfast casserole was eggy and cheesy and warm and toasty and steamy. He cooked it right on the fire in this big black pot. And those would be details that I want to think about. If you're thinking about sensory details, those are going to be the way things look. So like the colors and the size and the shape, smells, how they taste, how they sound, and textures, like how they feel. Okay? So then I might describe my campfire as smoky and hot. There's little sparks that flicker up from the top. The color was reddish orange. For my owl and coyote noises, I'm going to hear all these squeaky little chirps. That's kind of scary and creepy. Maybe that little sound, like I could do a little onomatopoeia right here, the hoo 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 hoo. And then that moonlight, I could say that it helped, that it was shiny and white, and kind of maybe a little fuzzy since it was winter. I know Cynthia described hers as crisp and sharp. I'm going to say mine is fuzzy and soft. The last column is for your conversation. Go ahead and think about what the characters might say about your objects. For example, the sleeping bag. Mom said, unroll the sleeping bags and put 2 in each tent. Breakfast casserole. The kid might say, what is that amazing smell? Asked kid number 2. The dad might say, stack those logs nice and loose so the fire will spread out. And then I could do 2 more. I didn't have time to do those today, but I could think about maybe the kid says, what was that? I heard a strange sound. She said. And then maybe the kid says, I don't know, I heard it too. So kind of think about those conversations and that dialogue. What are your characters going to say to each other in your story? All right. So I hope you're going to pause the video. Well, you're actually going to stop the video now, and you're going to think about these things for your details. I encourage you to be creative and to really think deeply about what you want to say in your story. If you have questions, make sure you post them in the private comments. I'll be answering questions. Even if you were in class and you're watching this video because you want to catch up or you want to remember what we talked about in class, this is a good video to watch. So hopefully you are watching too. And I will see you for our next lesson on Friday. Bye-bye.